Hello and welcome to another episode of Being Vegan Doesn't Mean Saying No to Cakes. This time it's a chocolate cake. Took a trip out to a brewery with some friends a few months ago. We went to Brass Castle, so their logo is a little ambigram. So it says the same thing in both directions. The idea for the trip came around because we were sitting in the pub drinking this, which is their Trinitario. If I can get that into shot. So it's a chocolate stout. It's a really deep, dark flavoured beer that's got some really delicious kind of cacao flavours in there. So messaged them on Twitter and then over we went and spent an amazing day showing us how to make beer and then drinking. Too much. Way too much. So I brought a few beers home to drink here, and then I kind of thought I'd like to do something edible with the Trinitario. So I've been kind of rolling it around in my mind and then remembered ages ago eating a chocolate porter cake. So it's kind of a chocolate cake made with porter, which is also a type of dark beer. So that's what we're going to do today. So I'm going to make chocolate cake, and then in the middle of it, I'm going to put a praline cream in. So it's nuts that have been caramelized and then blitzed down to a paste. That will go in the middle, and then on the outside I'm going to do cream cheese frosting. I'll do the cake first because that needs to bake for an hour, and then it's probably going to need 2-3 hours to cool down before I can start doing the middle and the outside. I've lined a little cake tin and oiled it just so it doesn't stick. You can use greaseproof paper as well. I just get very temperamental with it because it just falls out. This is a 20 centimetre pan. Can't quite see because it's a very old pan and all the numbers have worn off. This is a fan oven. I'm preheating it to 160 degrees C. If it's not fan, do 180. We need 260 mils of dark beer. This is a stout. You can use porter, you could use a Guinness, that kind of thing. The recipe wants 250 grams of butter. I've only got enough margarine. I don't have enough vegan butter, so I'm going to try and do it with like a spread. See if it works. So pop that in as well. Got a 100-gram bar of dark chocolate. When it comes to baking and cooking, it's always better to use higher cocoa solids as possible, just to get the intensity of flavour. But I'm also going to pop in some cocoa powder, so I think it should be fine, not a problem. So I'm just going to leave it in the packet, and then just smack it on the counter to break it into pieces. Tip the chocolate in. Going to warm that through till everything's melted. It's on a medium heat, it's on 6, mine goes up to 9, but just, yeah, you don't want it too aggressive so you don't burn anything. The recipe wants 400 grams of caster sugar. I might reduce that because it's going to be very, very sugary otherwise. Sieving it isn't mandatory, but because I must have left the canister open, so it's just got a bit lumpy in places. So I've taken out 100 grams. Yeah, I just think because the beer itself is quite sweet, then I'm going to have the praline cream in the middle, which is sweet, and the cream cheese frosting, which is going to be sweet. So, I don't know, this is the bit of baking that freaks me out a bit, because baking's a bit more scientific, but we'll see. I'm gonna mix the cocoa powder into the sugar, so that's 300 grams of sugar at the moment. Just give that a good mix together and try and get out some of the lumps from the cocoa powder. I could have sieved it, really. Should have, maybe, but I didn't. Get the spoon in, just crush them down. That's all nicely mixed in, nice and even. See how this is doing. Shouldn't take too long. Might just break some of these bigger blobs of marge up. Speed it along a wee bit. A little trick to kind of amplify chocolate flavours is to use a touch of coffee. So just work that into a powder. Everything's all melted now, nice and even. No big streaks of butter. I'm going to gradually pour it in as I'm whisking. So work that in and then pour the rest, I think. That's well combined now. The sugars are starting to melt, so it's not quite as grainy. The recipe wants 2 large free-range eggs, and I've made chia seed eggs. All you do is grind up some chia seeds and then mix that with water. If you want to see how to do it, like in a video, I'll pop a link in the description for you. There's the chia eggs. You can do that with flax seeds, or you could just use, you know, if you can buy like a commercial egg replacer, just do that. Just mix to the instructions. Bloop. Work that into it. Just trying to make sure there's no unevenness. The original needs 150 grams of full-fat Greek yogurt, so I'm going to use 150 grams of vanilla soy yogurt. Not sure what that's going to do to it, but we're about to find out. And I opted for the vanilla just to boost the flavour up a little bit. And I'm going to add an extra kind of teaspoon or so of vanilla extract. Whisk in the yogurt. The recipe calls for plain flour, and I suddenly realised this morning that I don't have any because I've been kind of winding my stocks of wheat flour down. So I did find a bag of cake flour, I think the difference is cake flour's got less gluten in it, so it makes a sort of more tender crumb in cakes, but I hope it's going to be okay. 280 grams of flour, then I did that sort of a teaspoon-ish of the coffee powder, then 2.5 teaspoons of baking soda, and then I also popped in about 1/4 teaspoon of salt. That wasn't in the original, but I always like putting a touch of salt in just to boost the flavour a tiny bit. So I'll sieve that in just to avoid any lumps or anything really. Mix this together. So that's fairly smooth and even. I'm gonna have a quick taste of it to see if it needs the extra sugar. There's a nice sweetness to it, and then I think with the frosting and the cream in the middle, it's gonna be fine. I think this is just gonna be too small. I could possibly get it all in, but then there's no room for it to rise. Yeah, so I'm just gonna err on the side of caution. Transfer it, forcing it into the corners, and then spinning it around. Oil it again, just to be on the safe side. So you can use your little paper towel with oil on it just to smooth the foil down. Pour the batter in. And then slide this into the oven. Set the time for an hour. I will keep checking it just to make sure the top isn't getting too dark. Well, it's going to be difficult because it's a chocolate cake. So it will be harder to identify if it's burning. I've had a quick clean down, so it's time to crack on with the praline cream. I tell you what, I'm very glad I put the cake in the bigger pan. Because look at that. Wow. I mean, it's looking great, but yeah, that would have been a disaster. From what I understand, praline typically refers to nuts that have been caramelized in sugar. So it's like candied nuts. If I'm wrong, I'll correct myself. The idea for putting the praline cream in the middle came about, I don't know, 12 o'clock at night, when I got an email from a blog that I subscribed to called fullofplants.com. So I'll pop the link to the recipe in the description along with everything else. So we're going to use almonds and hazelnuts. If you can find them, buy blanched almonds and blanched hazelnuts. All I could find was ones that have got skins on, so I'm now going to have to try and peel those. I've done a bit of Googling, and Julia Child apparently had a great technique, which was boiling them with baking soda, and I think the soda disintegrates the bonds between the skin and the nut itself, makes it a bit easier. So I've got a pan of water boiling aggressively. It doesn't need to be that high, so I'll turn it down a touch. I've got 3 tablespoons of baking soda. Does need to be soda rather than powder, because powder's got flour and other things in it, so this is bicarbonate soda. This may well foam over, so that's why you're so far away, just in case. So I'm going to add that into the water, give it a mix around. Now that I know the foaming's okay, I can bring you in a bit closer, and then I'll pour the nuts in. Set my timer for 3 minutes. I have got a black towel to hand just in case it starts foaming over the pan. I'm using black because that's going to stain because of the brown, the tannins I think that are in the skins, so just in case. And I'm just going to keep moving them around. And then I've set up just a little dish of cold water because I'll pop nuts in there just to test if the skins are ready to come off yet. Yeah, I think if you keep... that's getting big. Yes, if you keep stirring it, the foam should stay in the pan. And then pop one of each into the cold water. Oh, look at that. Yeah, I think that's going to be okay. And then I'll just drain these off. Oh, look at that water. Goodness. That's minging, as we say in the north. Try and shake off some of the excess. Got a tea towel on a baking tray, and that's just to sort of get some of the excess moisture off after I peel them. Yes, they slide out very easily. And then the skins, they can go in the compost bin, so the little wormies can have a treat. The other way of doing it is, I think they call it roast and rub. So you toast the nuts for sort of 10-15 minutes and then rub them with a tea towel, and that gets the skins off. But yeah, I've done it myself in the past, and you end up with little bits still. Whereas this seems to get them almost totally clean, which is perfect for what we need. It is just a bit of a labour of love, unfortunately. Do be mindful that the skin might stain, so don't put things on a, you know, on a white cloth that's your mother's favourite linen or something like that. You know, use an old towel that you don't mind if it stains. Just getting a little piece of kitchen roll, and I might rub, you know, if there's any that have got bits of skin remaining, I can just wipe them at the same time. So I'll see you back when I've peeled all these. I'm still on with the peeling, but the oven timer is about to go off, so I'm just going to check the cake very quickly. Oh, it's massive. I'm just going to poke it. Yeah, it's still quite sticky inside. Covered it with foil just to stop it from burning on the top, because it's really difficult to tell because of how dark that cake is. So I'll just keep checking it. I'm going to do 15 minutes and then maybe 10-minute increments, and then I'll see you once all of these are done. Nuts are all done. They're all naked and looking lovely. They're all skinless. I'm going to put the nuts into the oven on the lower shelf just so they can start toasting off a little bit, roasting and developing the flavour. The nuts ideally want to be on at 180. I think it should be okay. I'm going to shake them every 5 minutes or so. Timer has just gone off, so fingers crossed this is the last time I need to do this. I reckon that's probably good to go. For the internal temperature, so it's 98 degrees C. I'm going to cool it on a little rack, and after 5-10 minutes, I'm going to take the outside off just so it can aerate more efficiently. Let's check the nuts. They've got a nice golden colour to them, very shiny and oily. So I'm going to tip those onto a cold tray and then just shake them into one layer. Get a bit of space in there just so they can cool down rapidly. It's the following day. I'm going to get cracking with the praline. I want to get that started, and then as that's heating up, I can talk you through what didn't happen yesterday evening. So I've got 200 grams of just white granulated sugar in the pan. Mine goes up to 9 and I've got it on 6. So I'm going to let that heat through and hopefully start caramelizing. Also got my bowl of deliciously smelling naked nuts, nice and shiny and golden. I'm also setting up a tray with a silicone baking sheet ready for the praline. And you do want to have something underneath it so it doesn't stick to your tray. So you can use baking paper if you want, or oiling the tray, that would also work. Yesterday evening when I tried to attempt the praline, it just didn't work. So I did a bit of looking online. I think what happened is because I halved the praline recipe, there just wasn't enough water to fully hydrate the sugar evenly. So then by the time it started getting hot, I had parts that were still a little bit dry. That meant I then started getting crystals around the edge of the pan. And when you're making caramel, so I've read, you need there to not be any crystals because sugar wants to reform in a crystal. So if you have something on the side of the pan, it then triggers some sort of molecular reaction and starts reforming crystals and then eventually seized completely. I added some boiling water to the pan and got it back to a syrup. But again, because I had crystals around the sides that I couldn't quite get off, it started happening again. And I've since read last night that once the sugar starts boiling, you're not supposed to stir it because that can cause the crystallization again. So I've looked on loads of different websites overnight, and of course every person you ask has got a different answer, usually that completely contradicts what you've just been told. So apparently there's 2 methods of making caramel. There's the wet method, which is what I tried, mixing the sugar and the water, and then there's the dry method, which is what I've just done, so you don't put any water in. Both have pros and cons. With the wet method, it's easier to control, and I think there's a less chance of burning. But crystallization is more likely to happen. And then with the dry method, with this one, it's easier to burn, but you don't get the crystallization. So I'm going to try it this way. I went out this morning, bought more sugar. I bought way more than I needed, just in case it happens again. So we're going to try, we're going to see. So I need to not stir it when it's boiling. And then I've also got a little dish of water and a pastry brush. And if I get any fleckles of sugar around the pan, I need to kind of wash the side down just to get the crystals back in and melted. That's how it kind of came out. So I just put it on a silicone sheet and then let it go hard again and then broke it into pieces. So yeah, it's very airy and very brittle and kind of grainy. So I put a bit in my morning tea because I don't think you can rescue it to use it in caramel. So I'm paying close attention to the edges because that's where it's going to start happening first. In the meantime, I can peek at the cake. And it smells incredible. So it's hopefully going to be a very deep, dark, intensely chocolatey flavour. Because there's nothing worse than a chocolate cake that doesn't taste like chocolate. It's just really disappointing. But that looks lush. A little bit sticky, a little bit kind of moist, which is good. I maybe should have covered it earlier, or at least put a ring of foil around the side there, because there are some kind of crispier bits. But by the time it's got the cream cheese frosting on, it'll be fine. I'm just gonna swirl it because I don't want it to catch anywhere in the pan. And I can smell caramel. And then just get these bits. So I can see there it's starting to melt. I've also filled the sink with a bit of cold water because if it starts going too dark, I need to plunge the bottom of the pan into there to take the heat out. A common bit of advice is to do it in a heavy bottom pan, just to make sure it kind of heats evenly. The cast iron pan that I've got is flaking in places on the side, and I just thought that might trigger the crystallization again, so I thought I'll try it in this pan. It's not wonderfully heavy bottomed, but it's, you know, a couple of mils maybe. And if that doesn't work, we'll do it in the cast iron pan. I was trying to do something pale as well so that I could see the colour of the caramel, because if it's in black, it's really difficult to tell if it's changing colour. What I am doing as well, what I'm trying to remember to do, is move the pan around. So in case there's any hot spots on that burner. It's definitely happening around the edge there. The problem I've got is it's starting to change colour. And there's a lot that's not melted yet. I don't want it to burn. Just keep shaking it. I'm hoping that's, you know, I'm telling you as if I know what I'm doing. Which obviously I don't. Oh, but okay, we're getting lots of nice colour there. Might be a big mistake, but I'm just gonna separate some of this kind of dry one. I don't know if that's visible for you, but it's a little bit grainy still, and we need it all to be kind of even and glossy. Okay, so I think I'm going to put the nuts in. So I've just taken it off the hob. I'm going to stir that. You've got to work kind of quickly with this because it's going to start setting. Just want to make sure all of it's covered. Oh, it's worked, yay! Try and get it into an even layer. That might not be possible. I wonder if I can, yes, okay. I'm going to press it flat with another sheet because that won't stick. I mean, it doesn't really matter if it's in clumps. So it is a success. Yes! That feels like a win, I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna leave this for at least an hour because it needs to be rock hard so then I can blend it up. Taste of it is gorgeous. It's got that really nice caramel, toasty kind of flavour. And then to clean the pan, I'm just gonna fill it up with boiling water and simmer it a little bit, and that'll soften the sugar up because you don't want to put thick molten sugar down the sink. So I'm just gonna dilute it and then give that a scrub out. So I'll see you back in a little bit when we're going to make cream cheese frosting and split the cake open. Praline has set completely, which is a great sign. So now I can grind it into a paste. So I think what I'm going to do is take it as far as I can in the food processor and then finish it with the hand blender. So I'll give it a bash with this, see if that works. If not, we'll think of something else. That seems to be working quite well. You just need something heavy and sturdy really to break it apart. Be careful of trying to rip it apart with your hands because that sugar will cut you. It's very sharp. So it's all in slightly smaller pieces now. The smell coming off here is fantastic. I'm going to pour this in. So that's all in there now. Now I'm going to cross my fingers and start the food processor. I really hope this works. I could use a break. I'm going to pause it for a second, have a quick check inside. It does seem to be breaking down and then forming clumps, so that's a great sign. Resembles breadcrumbs. It doesn't feel dry as such. So I guess that's the oils in the nuts. I'll let it go for another minute or so, and I might crank the speed right up, see if that does anything. That's the stage at the moment, and it is very bitty still. I just don't think this is ever going to get into a paste. Got it all in a glass jug. It does need to be quite a sturdy thing really, because you don't want to crack the bottom or anything, because you will have to throw the lot out if you get glass in there. Oh look, we're getting cream! Yay! It worked. I honestly can't tell you how happy I am that this didn't fail. It's still a tiny bit grainy, but I'm fine with that. That's naughty. I'm going to keep it in the jug for now, and then I can spoon it on the cake. And then whatever's left over, I'm going to put in a little clean glass jar, and it can just go in the cupboard according to the recipe and be stored for months. If it separates, you know, like if you make your own peanut butter, or if you get some of the organic ones, they split in the jar. So you get the nuts at the bottom and the oil at the top. Just give it a mix, it'll be fine. The mixture's gone quite warm. I think that's the friction from blending. So I'm going to let it cool down again before I try and put it on the cake, because I don't want it to just run out the sides. But by the time I've split the cake and made the cream cheese frosting, it should have cooled down to be perfect. Onto the cream cheese frosting. Now the recipe I found is from Minimalist Baker. Recipe's in the description for you. When I looked in the comments, some people were saying it's quite soft, and I think that might come down to the type of cream cheese that you use. So what I think, because I know the one I use is a little bit soft, so what I might do is switch out a third of the butter for coconut oil, because that sets much firmer. Because I just don't want to put it on and then it ooze off the side of the cake. No, I want a great big fat layer on there. I've got 80 grams of softened vegan butter. I did the microwave softening trick. So you just put a cup of hot water in the microwave. Ping it for a couple of minutes so it gets steamy in there, and then put the butter in. Don't put the microwave back on though. You're just trapping it in somewhere warm, and then the heat that's in there will soften the butter. That's 40 grams of room temperature coconut oil, and I've kind of scraped the spoon to get it out just so it's in little flakes, because I think that's going to be easier to work into the butter. So I'm going to start by fluffing that up a little bit. Add in the oil. And I'm going to add 230 grams of vegan cream cheese, and then beat that together. Just going to scrape the sides of the bowl down a bit. Add a bit of vanilla extract, maybe half a teaspoon, and then mix it together again. This is 500 grams of icing sugar, powdered sugar in the States. I've sieved it just to get some air in and to get any lumps out. I'll do 1 cup at a time. The recipe says anywhere from 3 to 5 cups. Again, it's just going to depend, I think, on the humidity of where you are, the type of sugar you use, the type of cream cheese, all of that stuff. So just as much as is needed. I'll start it running and then shake it in. It's holding those kind of ribbons, I think they're called, you know, when you can see the lines in it. And if I dunk a spoon in, just gonna see what it's like. I mean, how can you not like cream cheese frosting? Oh, I'm gonna cover it up and then just put it somewhere cool while I split the cake, and then hopefully it'll hold its shape nicely on the cake rather than just running off the sides. I've taken the cake out the foil and put it on a bit of greaseproof. I've never split a cake before. This might go horribly wrong, but what I've seen people do is kind of score with a smaller knife and then use a bigger knife to go through the middle. So I'm going to give that a go. I'm going in maybe, I don't know, 1.5 inches, something like that. And then I'm back where I was. So there's like a little line all the way through it. Hopefully you can see that. Put a bit of foil here ready to receive that. And I'll go in with a bread knife. You want a serrated blade, and I'll go hopefully through the middle. I'm going to drag the cake closer to the worktop because I need to be able to get my hand flat. So without bashing my knuckles, I'm just going to pull it closer towards here. And then, this isn't the biggest bread knife. Yes, I might have to what I might do is put another knife on the other side and then lift it together like that and put it on there. So inside it's a very dense cake. It's kind of like a brownie. That's what it reminds me of. The praline cream's cooled down again. It is runnier than I thought it would be. I thought it might be more like, I guess like a peanut butter, a bit stiffer. But I think that should be fine as long as I don't flood the top. So I'm just gonna spoon it into the middle and then kind of work it to the sides a little bit. I might leave a gap around the outside because then when I put the top on, it's gonna splurge it a little bit. So you can see it's quite runny. Splodge it in the middle. I guess I'm gonna kind of drag it out a little bit. And then I'll just kind of drizzle it where I want it. And then I need to somehow get that lid back on. Rest one side down, get one knife out. Like that. Oh, yes. I can see little glimpses of the cream. Cake decorating and frosting aren't really my forte. I'm not going to pretend that it is. So I think I'm just going to kind of blob it on, smear it around. I've got a crank, I think they call it a cranked handle or a turned handle. So you've got the blade and then you've got another bit so that you can get flat. Yeah, so I think I'm going to scoop it on and kind of try and make it look somewhat messily pretty. So I'm going to scoop some out with a spoon and kind of dollop it on and then work that around on the top and kind of do that kind of thing to it. Cake did sag in the middle, so I need to be careful not to get like a big well of it, as much as I love the stuff. And then I can kind of rough it up a little bit, I think. So I'm going to keep some in a spoon and then take it from there, I think. Like that. Not. I keep picking up bits of crumb, which I don't particularly want. It may well be the first time in my adult life that I've iced a cake. I've just realised I never normally bother. Now that it's all covered, I'm just gonna swirl it a little bit, I guess. Don't do it too aggressively though, you'll lift off some of the cake. Cake's all frosted. I'm gonna leave it for a couple of hours just to firm up. I'm hoping that the frosting will set a little bit, just so then it doesn't trickle back inside once I slice it. And I'll probably do the knife trick, put the knives underneath it and then use that to put it on some sort of plate once I've decided what it's going to go on. So I'll see you back for the eating. I'm so excited for this one. It's cake time. I've waited long enough. I can probably do with waiting a little bit longer because it's still somewhat soft, but it's just been looking at me and whispering, Rachel, consume me. So the praline cream is kind of oozing out in places, but not everywhere. So I know that's fine. And it's all going to taste incredible as I shovel it in my mouth. I hope this picks up on camera, but you can see it's very, not wet, the word that nobody likes, which is moist, but it is. It's gorgeous. It hasn't dried out at all. Cheers. I'm struggling with what to say because, wow. Whenever I kind of construct recipes in my head, I'm like, oh yeah, that'll be good. And oh, I'll do that with it, that'll be good. But even in my head, it didn't taste that good. Reducing the amount of sugar that I put in the cake mix itself was definitely a good thing to do, because with the cream and then the cream cheese frosting, it's just sweet enough, it's kind of perfect. Whereas if it had that extra 100 grams of sugar in, I think it would have just been a bit too much. Whereas that, as it is, it's a very grown-up cake, maybe. Kids would enjoy it, but I think there's enough flavours and nuance in there to really give the sort of more mature palate a little bit something more to enjoy, because you've got that chocolate flavour and you've got the sweetness, but then in the background you've got the beer flavour, and maybe you might not necessarily know it's beer unless you were told. but it's just got so much depth to it. So you've got that amazing flavour from the cake, then the praline cream gives it a real intense kind of sugary nuttiness from the hazelnuts. And then that cream cheese, even though that's sweet, because cream cheese is quite tangy, it knocks it back a little bit. So it kind of balances everything out in your mouth. Oh, goodness me. I'll definitely make it again, because that was quite possibly one of the best chocolate cakes that I've had ever. Not just vegan chocolate cakes, but yeah. I reckon that would work quite well with gluten-free flour as well. So maybe do half of the amount of just your gluten-free mixed, you know, kind of rice flour, tapioca, that kind of, the ones that it's a mixture of different powders. And then maybe half chickpea flour, the gram flour. The chickpea is quite cakey anyway. And I think gluten-free flour, your blended type flours, I find it a bit starchy. So I think together that might work really nicely. And then because you've got the chocolate in there, that's gonna mask the flavour of the chickpea flour. Yeah, so I think half and half would work really well. If you want to try that, and you do, let me know in the comments how that's worked out for you. You might need to tweak the amount of baking soda, maybe an extra half teaspoon, maybe not though, if you're okay with a kind of brownie consistency. When the caramel failed last night, there was a bit of me that thought, just do it without, you know, just do it with the frosting, that'll be okay. And I'm so glad I didn't, because that really does finish it off. It just brings that extra little dimension of flavour. If you wanted to serve this as a kind of dessert and you wanted a little bit of extra something on the plate, I reckon maybe a blackberry sorbet or maybe a raspberry sorbet. You don't want anything rich, so no ice cream really, I don't think. Yeah, maybe a fruit coulis. You need something tangy and bright to then work opposite the cake, because if you start putting vanilla ice cream and things like that, it's going to get lost in there. So you need something to kind of contrast and for the flavours to bounce off each other. But yeah, or even maybe some grilled pineapple. Like I roast pineapple in the air fryer and it goes really juicy and delicious. And I think that would be quite nice with that. Just sprinkle a little bit of brown sugar and some nutmeg on top and then bang it in for like 20 minutes. Oh, it's gorgeous. I'm just really, really happy with that. And like a little bit proud of myself as well. Like, yeah, I did it. Eventually. If you're a big fan of things that make you go, hit subscribe, tap the bell icon, and definitely check out this one.